would you do for the ones you love? What would you do to save that one special person in your life? Maybe you would rather think about all that, but just stay inside and read romance novels all day because you're too socially awkward to go out and meet a new person. Well, then you should play Haven. In this game you play as Kay and Yu, who are already knee-deep in their own story. They've run away from their home colony called the Hive with no plan, a dinky ship, and a set of stolen coordinates for an abandoned planet that might not even exist. It's exactly as Romeo and Juliet as it sounds. While that does run the risk of being hokey schlock, Haven's writers actually do a fantastic job with it. Hold on, let me actually credit them by name real quick. Holy shit, they only have one writer! Pierre Corbianis is the only credited writer, so aside from possible influence from Emmerich Thoa as the creative director, that means this guy is holding the entire story on his shoulders. Okay, so this is a post-editing correction because I realized I had said his name wrong the entire video. It's actually pronounced Corbinis. I apologize to all of France. When it comes to romance plots like this, it is absolutely crucial to be more than just a repeat or a gimmick. Yeah, it's the same love story you've heard 1,000 times, but this time it's in space? No, none of that shit. This game respects your intelligence, it respects that you can pick up on the world building without dragging you along, and it skips the initial falling in love phase entirely. This is a game about characters. This is about Kay and Yu, and we are a fly on the wall that slowly gets to fall in love with them. It's the perfect game for sitting back on a rainy night, chilling on your couch, and getting lost while listening to the distant sounds of thunder.
I hear thunder. Pitter patter. Time to wake up.
What would you do for your chance at freedom? What would you do to save the only person at the end of the day that matters? Furi is a game designed to ask you that question, then do everything in its power to put you back in your cell. When asked about the core gameplay philosophy of Furi, Emmerich Thoa is quoted as saying,
"I didn't want all players to finish the game because that would have made it less memorable for the players I targeted.
This game is designed to frustrate you, degrade you, and beat you down over and over again, just so you can feel that rush of victory. It is by far the best bullet hell game I have ever played. Toho players, don't at me. Furi represents a massive jump in production for the game makers, because up until now, they had only made mobile games. I don't know what eldritch magic trick they pulled when making Furi, but they pulled funding from Sony, music from Carpenter Brute, and character design from fucking Takashi Okazaki all into one project. It's an incredible blend of art direction, music, and hyper-tuned gameplay that is just fucking mwah! Oh, what was that? Who's Takashi Okazaki? Oh, nobody really. Just a little-known writer and artist for a manga called Afro fucking Samurai! Okay, let's hone in on some specifics so this isn't just a whole video of me gushing. Let's use the first fight against the Chain to break down exactly how this game beats you into the dirt just to build you back up. You got a few simple buttons: shoot, slash, dodge, and parry. You can charge these two for big hits, but you can't hold a parry like an extended block. There's a melee combo limit of 4, a charge during melee only phases that empowers your next hit, and that's it. These simple controls are all you have for the whole game. There are no power-ups, no new weapons, no new moves to learn, just you and the skill you develop. The Chain is about what you would expect from a tutorial boss, and it's a great way to get your feet wet with these new controls. In the first 2 phases. After that, the rest of the fight is about setting up expectations and expanding on simple mechanics. Suddenly, enemies can attack with no windup, send out waves you have to dash over rather than around, and you can't just slam the sword button expecting that to work out.
Think fast, chuckle nuts!
Without explicitly telling you, the game is teaching you its main mode of play. We'll call this the tennis approach. Thoa said that his main inspiration for the sword fighting phases was tennis and punch-out, so I think that fits. Parry, dodge, carve out safe zones, and manage your spacing until an opening presents itself. And while that opening may take a little figuring out in later fights, it will always make it self-evident. This core playstyle is what the entire game is built around, and while some fights play out more like a dance rather than a back and forth, you are taught to always jump at lulls in the fight. The chain makes this pretty easy to pick up on since he's basically moving in slow motion. I mean, like, look at him. Molasses man over here. While this gives a new player the best chance of picking up the tennis approach, it runs the risk of making the fight feel patronizing and kinda handholdy. However, more astute players that pick this up quickly might start noticing places to sneak in extra hits or interrupt the boss's attacks for free damage. Every fight ends with what I call the spectacle phase. This is the phase where the boss becomes invulnerable for a while and just floods the screen with danger. While these are visually very fun phases, they are often an endurance test as to how long you can hold a position correctly while holding the shoot button to carve a path. These phases are often daunting and drawn out, especially since you just spent several phases of a difficult fight memorizing attack patterns, trading blows, and panic dodging. This is by design. You are supposed to be exhausted and white-knuckling the controller, so when you finally land that killing blow, it's like releasing tension from a spring. Victory washes over you like a wave, and if it's a fight you've been particularly stuck on, it's like clicking a puzzle into place while winning a boxing match. Battered, tired, and elated, you get a few minutes to bask in this feeling while taking in the environment on a nice, slow walk. Walking speed is painfully slow. The movement in general leaves a lot to be desired. You've got what seems like the basis for an interesting movement system, but it never gets expanded upon besides getting you from A to B. These lines here, called flow threads, are supposed to charge up your boots so you can keep gliding, but in my regular playthrough I was never anywhere near close to running out. I think the only way to gauge your battery is by this blob, which is... well, it's definitely blue. The most interesting thing the movement does in this game is make flow threads that go up in the air to get to higher places. I would harp on this stuff more, but frankly it's the least impactful part of the gameplay. There's no difficult platforming, and thank fucking god there is no racing. If we want to talk about interesting gameplay, the best we're going to get is from the combat system. It's kinda bare bones, but I actually really like it. I've never seen a combat system that is simultaneously turn-based but also not. Like, enemies will wait their turn, but also things are on a clock. It's really hard to explain, but watching the footage, I think you'll get what I mean. And I'm sure somebody is gonna comment, oh, this exact combat system was actually an Octopath Emblem 24 Death by Sleep. Yeah, I don't care. No one cares. Why should I care? I played this game on PC, but the combat is what cued me into the fact that this game was pretty obviously made for the Switch. The PC port is totally fine, but I think that making the game explicitly for the controller was a really good decision. It enforces the idea that you're supposed to play the game on a big comfy recliner or on your couch with a controller on a console, rather than sitting in your dark bedroom in an uncomfortable gamer chair that's slowly ruining your back. You know, like I did. Once you get into the flow of how combat works and learn to alternate who's blocking and who's attacking, it's actually kind of like a fun dance. The combat becomes more of a resource management game rather than a reaction-based game. That's actually a really cool distinction between Haven and in that other game, you do everything in your power to avoid taking damage. It's more of a test of how few mistakes you can make, with your health serving as a sort of counter for how many mistakes you get before starting over. In Haven, it's a test of how well you can prepare for taking the damage you can't avoid. If you want to travel away from home for long periods of time, take a bunch of fights to level up KNU, and have to not go running back to the nest every 20 minutes, then you have to forage, cook, and craft up healing items to bring along. Haven really makes a point of encouraging you to take your time, and making the player do this prep work is actually a good way for them to experience the world organically. Different islets are marked on your map with what resources they have, so if you want to make those really good bandages, you're going to have to go back and forage when you're running low. Even if you don't do hours of prep work, the game really isn't hard. Every so often you'll find a fight that you have to craft a specific power-up for, but the game is a breeze all the way through. Oh man, look at this dubby boy over here. Alright, well we'll just take care of this while we're on cleanup.
What the fuck?
Okay, maybe accept this guy. I actually had a ton of fun when I felt like I was in actual danger. It really makes me wonder how this combat could have been expanded if they leaned into it harder. Maybe like an optional super hard area? Oh, maybe once I beat the game, there's a higher difficulty. Furier mode is where the game goes from brutal to downright unfair. Let's use the third boss as a case study, since, frankly, I couldn't be fucked to continue Furier past this point. On normal difficulty, which is called Fury, so we'll go with that, this fight is supposed to represent the first big spike in difficulty. In an interview with DualShockers, Thoa was asked about this specifically. Fury is a very difficult game. I like to call it Sweaty Palms Simulator. I played it again recently and breezed through the first two bosses, then got stuck for a couple of hours on the third boss, again. I'm sure plenty of people had their own getting stuck point. Do you have any metrics on what bosses specifically trip people up, or do you know a common jump out point for a lot of players? Yes, basically the third boss is the first difficulty peak. That's actually something we designed on purpose. The difficulty peaks were made to require perseverance so that you feel incredible satisfaction once you beat them. Of course, that's not something everyone is looking for in a video game, but for some people it's a reason to keep playing instead of dropping out. And if we take a quick look at the Steam achievements, it seems that's exactly what the devs got. More than half of people who play this game fall off at this point, which is insane. The fight on Fury is fairly challenging, and it has this really fun make-your-own bullet hell phase that is super clever. It's a tight challenge at some points, especially during the spectacle phase, and tests your spatial awareness really harshly. If you can't pass the line, then you can't handle what comes after. Compare this fight to the same fight in Furier mode, and you can start to see the problems. Now this is a very difficult fight, but if you're enough of a perfectionist, and/or masochist, then you can get through. I have three main problems with this fight, and those are bullet spawns, screen clutter, and balance. Bullet spawns on Furier follow mostly the same rules that they do on Fury difficulty, but with one notable exception: telefragging. Some bullets and waves spawn in ways where it's almost impossible to dodge them. These waves don't follow a set spawn pattern, and they can spawn with you being right in the center of them, so if you don't dodge perfectly, or if you panic dodge, then you get hit. They move so fast as well that you only get that long to properly react. I would argue that those are excessively punishing, but these purple bullets are objectively unfair. Spawning off screen so you dash into them, spawning super close so you have no time to react, or even spawning right under you so you just take unavoidable damage. With how tightly tuned and refined the combat is in this game, with the precedent set by Fury mode, stuff like this is totally unacceptable. Make the bullets faster, make them homing, make more shit to dodge, I don't care. But damage you have no chance of dodging has no place here. Problem 2, screen clutter. Problem 3, balance. Now this can be a failing on my part, and I'll fully admit that, but the crux of Fury, the core of the game itself, it's built around this idea that eventually you'll get through and feel that high of victory. The issue here is that once you get to this fight, you lose a lot to stuff that feels like bullshit. When you're taking damage that is nearly unavoidable, damage that is completely unavoidable, or when your screen is so blasted with danger that your eyes hurt, losing stops becoming another step towards victory and starts feeling like you're bashing your head into a wall. When it feels like the game is working against you instead of challenging you, the balance of difficulty sways too far, and the victory just doesn't feel worth it anymore. The first two fights on Furier actually keep this balance really well. They're much harder versions of the game's first two fights, and they expect you to know what you're doing since you've beaten the game once before. They respect the player's skill and muscle memory, and these fights are very fun to master and replay. However, there is a perfect example of what Furier has to offer without feeling like a bullshit fight. Let me introduce you to my boy, Bernard. Bernard is so hard, he'll kill you in real life. You thought those 4 stocks were hard? You thought those 6 stocks were hard? How about 9 fucking stocks? Bernard is locked behind Furier mode, and that's for a very specific reason. All these 9 stocks are a test that reflect on every boss you fought throughout the main game. Most of the same mechanics and even attack patterns are brought back in a final boss rush as cranked up to 11. And these fights are long. A typical fight goes for maybe 6 to 10 minutes. One fight with Bernard can go as long as 17 minutes. That is over 15 minutes of white-knuckled, high-intensity, tightly packed gameplay that does not let up. The only attack in all of these phases that I think is even slightly bullshit is this one. But I do recognize that that's just a skill issue on my part. He even pulls out the homing bullets move, but it's not bullshit here because they spawn near him and just move out. Just keep a little distance and you don't get telefragged. No screen clutter, no fucked up bullet spawns, and every single fight I still get that fire of ambition that I'm getting better. Okay, but enough hammering on about the gameplay. Let's move on to the story. Haven has a story that respects your time and gets right into the meat of things. This isn't some vehicle for an author to do some fantasy world building or a story you're meant to insert yourself into. This story is about K and U, with the player getting the privilege to tag along for the ride. They are the core strength of this game, and as such, most of the love Corbianis gave to this game went to them. None of that intro world building shit, none of that ham-fisted exposition. All of that shit is completely secondary to these 2 goofballs who have no real plan. My favorite thing about the way this game starts is that it skips the whole falling in love thing, and that was actually a calculated risk.
When we pitched Haven as a love story about a couple in an established relationship as opposed to a boy meets girl story, some said you should rather make them fall in love during the game. There's no right or wrong, but they completely miss the point of what would make the game unique. In Haven, I think the 2 biggest risks are the established couple's storyline and an overall design philosophy of simplicity. It really goes the opposite way of modern game design in terms of economy and RPG systems. Fuck yeah, that was the one! That was the one! That was the one, baby! Yeah!
In a lot of ways, the legacy of the game makers is one of them taking risks to carve their own unique path, and that is reflected in the stories they tell. The parallels in That Other Game are obvious and they are extremely relevant in every story beat for Haven. Instead of going with the flow and taking the tired and true love story formula, they dared to try something unique. Speaking of which, let's take a little bit to talk about the flow.
Flow. Flow thread. Flow threads. Flow bridge. Flow bridge.
Like, what the hell is it even? Is it physical? Some creatures eat it and it can solidify into a substance called rust. But at the same time, we use it to power our ship, our boots, our blasts in combat. Haven is really, really good at putting questions like this on the table, but encourages you not to think too hard on them. Every time you start to fall into these kinds of questions, your attention is pulled back to K and U and their relationship. Like, why are they arguing about this crap? Who cares if you didn't talk to you about who she was paired up with on your home planet? K, you are being so thick right now. She ran away with you to an uninhabited planet. She clearly does not care. Also, what was all that she was saying about a matchmaker and recalibration? Do they really wipe their minds Lake Laogai style back home? And you can see how easy this is. Corbianis does an excellent job of weaving in these little bits of backstory with the character development in a way that's natural and doesn't bludgeon the player. Now you might be thinking, hey, this game looks really cute and chill. Maybe I'll play it with a friend or a partner, we can co-op it, or maybe I'll play it on like a chill live stream. While this game does give off really nice, cozy, rainy night couch vibes, there is a small hitch in that plan. Parents, if your kids are watching, now is the time to cover their ears. Are they covered? This game is really fucking horny.
Looks like a dirty job.
Ah, that's nothing. Just a bit of gunk. Scrubs right off.
Let's scrub it off right now. We all need a little maintenance, don't you think?
Am I supposed to believe that seeing my hands full of gunk is turning you on?
Certainly doesn't hurt.
Okay.
The devs worked pretty hard to avoid that adult rating, so there's nothing too explicit. Ignore that, but I think that shows yet another interesting juxtaposition between Haven and is obviously a much more violent game, and you would think that the more adult-oriented one, but it has no blood and only 2 swears in the entire runtime. Haven has some really raunchy stuff in it, and even some, spoilers for the end of the game, permanent disfigurement, but no swearing though. Kinda. They came up with their own, actually.
Balding bloot. Blooting bloot.
Now, don't get me wrong, I'm totally fine with raunchy stuff. You know, I'm hip, I'm cool, I'm chill, you know? And I don't think it detracts from the story at all. It does limit the ways in which you can experience the game, though. Like, you're not gonna read Chuck Tingle while your blooting family is in the room. Family is a driving force behind the story of Furi. This bunny guy, called The Voice, is helping you because he's piggybacking off of you to escape the prison as well. He's no fighter, so he claims, but you learn that he's the guy who built this complicated space prison, and he's built it so well that he's trapped right alongside you.
Slowly, that ancient animal part of my brain took over. The urge that made me fast when she was in danger, that kept me awake when she was sick. The architect gave up, and the father came up with a plan.
His family waits for him on the planet below, so he's willing to risk releasing a threat as great as you just to see them again. But on the flip side, the jailers are fighting for the ones they care about as well. And none illustrate this explicitly as the Hand.
He who knows no fear, knows no courage. I take mine from you. We are what we fight for. I look at you, stranger, and I see nothing. Desolation. Death. You are alone. I am fighting for something much greater than this. Can you imagine the strength that gives me? I doubt it. And so your fight ends here.
On top of just being a very fun fight, the Hand is pretty heavy-handed in really painting how everyone else sees you as nothing but a threat. A promise to destroy everything they hold dear if you ever get out. That begs the question of, who the heck are you even? As far as you can tell, you're just a dude with a sword and a gun. But the sheer lengths these people have gone makes it seem like you're nothing short of a walking nuke. The sheer effort and outright determination is really telling, and it's around this fight that you start to feel that pit in your stomach. That feeling only worsens with the Hand's final phase, a series of non-stop, increasingly sluggish attacks as he pours the last of his strength into stopping you. And it's all for nothing. The next boss, the Song, doesn't even fight you at first. She tries her hardest to convince you to just put the sword down, to convince you to stay here in this heaven she's created. She's even fashioned herself to look like an angel. Your angel. Ready to forgive your sins and give you a comfortable life in your new cell. Of course, you refuse, and you kill her like the rest. Well, now that you're primed to believe that you're a terrible person, let's get into my favorite fights in the game, the Burst and the Edge. A lot of people online say the Burst is the hardest boss in the game, and while I agree that she's tough, I wouldn't say she's the hardest. We'll get to that in a minute. The Burst, however, does have the best song in the entire game, and man does this song go so hard. Furi definitely has the best soundtrack of any bullet hell game. Toho players, fuck off, but You're Mine is my go-to when I need something to pump me up. The Burst makes it abundantly clear from the get that this whole fight is just a game for her, and she's only fighting you because she has stacked the deck super hard. Her arena is huge, full of holes, and while you're dodging her little robots, she's trying to pick you off with her Halo-looking sniper rifle. Fun fact, if you ever lose her, you can parry and the game will automatically orient you to her. Thanks, random YouTube commenter. This game is so fucking cool. During the fight, she does what can only be described as, well, cheating. She'll summon little robots during sword fighting phases, create these little exploding balls with no warning, but the most impactful is that she goes semi-invisible to full invisible for the whole duration of the fight. These might seem like cheats on first encounter, but they're actually implemented in a way that's fair for the player, just very hard. She doesn't attack again until the robots are cleared. The balls have a delay, so once you know what they do, you can react to them appropriately. And her melee attacks are always preceded by this white flash and a noise. You've been seeing this flash the whole game, and melee attacks always have the same or very similar timing. So you've been inadvertently training for this fight the whole game. Removing the actual attack animation only tightens the window for reaction to when the attack chimes and when it hits, which again is tight but fair. Maybe that conditioning is actually why the Edge is my personal white whale. The Edge is a scumfuck bastard. You know that melee conditioning thing? Yeah, throw it out. Throw it all out! This guy is all sword fighting all the time, and he's ready to push you to your absolute limit. He's got feints. He's got fucked up timings. He's even got different combos that have different amounts of hits, so you have to watch for what his specific animation is. My first playthrough, this guy was an absolute brick wall. His stance is similar to yours. His hair is similar to yours. His colors are the opposite of yours. This man has been training for his entire life just for a chance at fighting you. But it felt like he spent all that time training to fight me specifically. I was stuck here for 2 days learning every single detail about this fight against my will. By the time I finally got that rush of victory, I was feral, practically bloodthirsty. I was ready to take the next boss by the throat and just...
Don't get me wrong, she's part of this. She's an overconfident, idealistic child who...
Yeah. Do you think these platforms are enough? You think these little lasers will save you? You're pathetic, a pushover. I've trained the entire game to come and fight you. You're a child. Dear God, you're just a child. I mean, there's got to be something after this, right? Like, this is obviously a fake out fight, so let's just...
Please, hold my hand.
Congratulations. All your hard work, all your training and perseverance, all so that you can kill an overconfident child. Take your leave. You're free. You've earned it. And with every step forward, you destroy more and more of the ground you walk on.
You are a monster!
Kay wakes up alone. The fight with Yu got pretty heated last night, and they both said things that they likely regret. Yu is gone, not just from your bed, but also the ship's systems and even the pause menu. Kay rushes out to find her, but Yu was the one who had the radar. Blindly stumbling islet to islet, Kay yells out apologies to nobody and processes who to blame a little too loudly.
I'm sorry about last night, but really it was kind of your fault as well. Okay, sorry, never mind.
But eventually they find each other across a divide. The fight is all but gone from their memory, and all that matters now is...
Are you crying?
No. Let's not fight again.
You know, when I was up there, I realized something. I don't know if they'll keep sending in drones.
I don't know if we can live here. I don't know if we'll end up at the bottom of a crevasse one morning. Or torn to shreds by a beast that was too big for us to handle. Or put to death by the ape Fury.
But I know that I never want to be away from you again. And if staying here is the only way, then I want to stay here.
How do I seal this deal?
A kiss.
Both female and male Yu, voiced by Janine Haruni and Ryan Hiley respectively, might have the same script, but they make the vibes of the scene very different. Male Yu feels reserved, almost embarrassed, as he searches for the right words to say that can make everything right again. Female Yu, on the other hand, feels like a runaway train of thought fueled by overflowing emotion. They were scared of losing everything they cared about, and they're both coming down from that in their own ways. Kay, on the other hand, is just doing their best to hold things together for the both of them. Somebody has to be strong here, and Kay already got their tears out. The scene is powerful, and they do their best to make it a tearjerker, but there is one major criticism I have here. Turn the music off right around here, at least during the big speech. Having the music keep going in the background, and worse, having it be the same music that's been playing the entire game, really pulls away from the moment. It makes it feel more like a side quest pulling you away from the main story rather than it being its own major story beat like it's supposed to be. This is supposed to be the moment, you know? The big climactic, you put on the Steam page to draw people in moment. Okay, maybe that's a little reductive, but you get what I mean. I just feel like the scene could have done more with less. I actually want to take a minute here to talk about the differences between the male and the female playthroughs of the game. Anyway, okay, but there really is no meaningful difference. And I think that's not just cool, but important. It's so rare to find good LGBT representation in games, and a lot of the representation that does exist calls it out specifically. Having the characters be exactly the same, regardless of gender or sexual orientation, is really, really refreshing. And the only thing that changes in the script are the pronouns. Yu still even has two moms, and Ozias is still a guy. Speaking of Ozias, wow, what a prick! Ozias represents a serious jump in threat compared to the rest of the game. Up until now, the game has been exceedingly low stakes, even encouraging the player to take days off just doing anything but the main quest. There's a ton of side content, and all of it increases your relationship level, but the real incentive is just seeing more content with these two since the writing is so good. In fact, the side content is so seamlessly enticing that more people have maxed out the relationship level for Kay and Yu than have finished the main story. Ozias, however, is that final push the player needs to actually go for the end of the story. He sends out a hollow bug to set up a call with Yu, and declares the matchmaker has set them up as partners, so all is forgiven if they just come back. No harm done. When you obviously offer some pushback with a soft yet firm fuck off, he says he'll just abduct you both and rewrite your memories. Oh! Okay, so Ozias is on the way, likely with an army of robots, likely sending more along the way, and the nest still isn't repaired. No more days off. We gotta knuckle down so we can find a way out of here and get off this.
We could sever the flow bridge.
Are you serious right now?
Why not?
Oh! I have to explain why this is such an insane escalation. Okay, so Mars, right? Pretty far out there. Here to there, like a million trillion miles. So imagine if we had a wormhole that went from Earth to Mars. And imagine that that wormhole was part of a network of wormholes that connected all the different planets in the solar system. And imagine that that wormhole was made up of a million different flow threads that all had to be cut. You see why that is such an insane escalation, right?
We've never cut a flow bridge before.
Yeah, no shit!
Acquiring rider. Resuming flight plan.
Oh, hold on. This is just Tron. Cancel invasion, attack mothership, and it's time for one of the worst fights in the game. Let me explain. So you know how The Edge was all about testing your sword fighting? Well, this fight is the inverse of that. Every phase is the spectacle phase. Now, on paper, this idea seems great, and saving it for the true final boss seems like a great idea. But man, a few things in this fight fall flat. First of all, there's a new mechanic that you're not told about, which is a fully piercing laser replacing your charge shot. Second issue is that the laser is the exact same color as the bullets in this fight. That wouldn't be a big deal if it didn't compound the last issue, which is that the camera angle is really awkward. There are some phases where it's incredibly hard to gauge bullet distances, meaning it's difficult to determine safe zones, meaning it's a bad idea to do this on the hardest fight in the game. Not to mention, this fight is an endurance test, so you're dealing with these issues for such a long time that it starts to grate on you. If these issues had been changed, and if this fight had a bit more polish, then I would have really liked this fight. It's really cool aesthetically, has some really fun waves, and it ends with a really cool explosion. Really, it's not a huge issue, but it makes the final boss feel frustrating rather than this big satisfying ending. All in all though, this game has a lot to love and come back to. The developers at the Game Makers really put their heart into creating a unique experience, and their effort stands out among other modern game developers. It will always blow me away how they were able to go from insane bullet hell game with a massive budget to a small, self-funded, and published project, but show the same amount of dedication and passion. I really want to keep an eye on their work, especially since nobody has any idea what they're going to do next. They've specifically said that they won't do Furi 2, and Haven ended pretty fucking finally, so I don't see a sequel there either. Who knows, maybe they'll do a rhythm game next. I'm just glad to have a team like theirs in the industry. As so much of the games industry becomes this homogenous block of FPS sequels, and passionate indie developers have so much of their success hinging on popular YouTubers playing their game, being able to have specific devs to watch for is incredibly valuable. Plus, it leads to little moments like discovering that these guys made a romance game! I'm still reeling from that! Thank you very much for watching. Sorry that the ending feels kind of rushed. I had been working on this script for months, and I just wanted to get it over with so I could do the rest of the video and the rest of my life. Thank you to Gramps and HISA for doing voiceovers for the quotes. I'll have links to whatever they want me to link in the description. There's a lot of stuff in both of these games that I still really wanted to talk about, like how Furi does a really good job of introducing people to a flow state, how Haven kind of does that with their combat, but it's not important. I wanted to talk more about the music because, man, the music in Furi is so good. But and also Danger from Furi came back and did all of the music for Haven, and it's all so good. The only issue I had was just the lack of variation, but like the stuff that's there is incredible. Anyway, follow my Twitter for updates on shit and for me to post about Blahaj. If you liked what you saw, then like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTuber shit. But yeah, thank you again. And for sticking through this long, here is all of the outtakes that I bothered to save and edit together. Have a good night. It's exactly as Romeo and Juliet. Fuck, I forgot the line immediately. Maybe you would rather think about that, but oh my god, I'm actually fucking up the line. I'm like not paying attention. Think. Pay attention. For sitting back on a rainy night. There we go. A few cough takes for future me. Enjoy listening to that, me. This is a game about characters. This is a game about K and you, while the player... I hate... Why do I do that? K and you? Pierre Corbianis is the only credited writer. So aside from other possible influences from... I fucked up the line. Other possible influences, like my dumbass brain. When asked about the core gameplay philosophy of Furi, Emmerich fuck me. You can charge these two for big hits, and you can... But you can't hold it. It's but. That should be but. I'm going to change that right now in the script live so that I don't fuck it up again when I do the next take. I haven't gotten through this first paragraph. Okay. However, there is a perfect example of what Furier mode is, where the game goes from brutal to downright unfair. Let's use the third boss as... I sounded really sinister saying that. I'm going to redo that. Downright unfair. I sounded like a fucking person putting in a complaint. Your management of this store and the wait times I had to deal with was downright unfair. I paid $300 for these Disney tickets, and I'll be damned if I have to wait at Splash Mountain for an hour and a half. Let me introduce you to my boy, Bernard. And why am I doing that? Don't do that. That's stupid. That's... Don't do that. That's dumb. Bernard. What the fuck is that? I'll do another take of that. I have to act. I'm acting. I wrote acting into the script. I'm cringe. But I'm free. Toho players, I love you. Let's kiss and make up, okay? Mwah.